Hey everyone, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see people are starting to still filter in, but again, we have a pretty good program for you. We are going to give everyone a few seconds to migrate in from the waiting room. Sometimes it can be a little slow getting into the presentation from a virtual waiting room. But as you make your way in, please mute yourself and switch your view from gallery to speaker so that you can see all the presentation materials and our our guest speakers today. If you're not sure how to do that, don't hesitate to um, post a chat question in the chat, and someone from our team will be happy to help you. Okay, with that, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us again here today. My name is Joe Perez. I am an engagement partner, audit and tax partner, and member of Withum Smith & Brown's not-for-profit service team. I'm also part of the leadership team here at the NJBIA's Not-for-Profit Council. We're so glad you could make it for this month's educational programming, and really glad you can help support us by attending these educational seminars. Just a quick reminder, we are recording. So everyone who is registered, you will get a copy of the recording along with any slides and materials later this week. Be sure to keep in touch with us so that we can keep you on the mailing list and make sure you get all of those valuable materials. Before we get started, I would like to give a quick shout out to our partners for helping make this happen. These are our sponsors and supporters, and they're always very good to us, and we want to make sure that they are recognized members of our organization. So I'll spotlight a few of them, well, all of them really. The Association Member Trust, Citizens Bank, DCM Associates, Focus New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, Nisavacia, Accountants and CPAs, the NJBIA HR Support Center, and NJ Business Magazine. Again, none of this would be possible without their support. So please, you can see their slide in front of you, has their some of their information. And if you need if you need to get in touch with them for anything that they may be able to help you with, feel free to do that. And all of you, again, all of the corporations I just mentioned, thank you for supporting this important work. Another quick bit of housekeeping, in case you're new, just a quick shout out to my fellow not-for-profit leadership team co-chairs, Dawn Darty, from the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide, Sally Glick of the CPA firm Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, Mary Lonergan of Covenant House, and Gary Pollock of GoMo Health. Now I'll turn it over to the BIA for a quick word from the BIA.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, welcome everyone. Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving week. I want to thank you for coming. I'm Casey Skorecki. I'm in sponsorship sales at NJBIA. And as Joe mentioned, this session is being recorded, and all attendees will receive an email later this week with the recording. And depending on what time we finish, we may have some time for some networking at the end of the meeting, but there is much to cover today. So we are thrilled to see this group assist our many NFP members and continue to foster collaboration with our corporate members. We're so happy to have such a strong leadership team guiding the way. And for those of you who are new to the NJ Business and Industry Association, we are the largest statewide business association in the country, representing approximately 1 million jobs in the state of New Jersey, which amounts to about a quarter of New Jersey's workforce, and offering customer development opportunities and visibility through events, magazine ads, our podcast, our TV show, and money-saving discounts and stuff you're probably already paying for things like payroll, healthcare, 401k solutions, HR support, and training. If you're interested in more info on us, I will drop our website in the chat. It's njbia.org. Also, my information if you want to reach out to me. And feel free to drop your contact info in the chat as well. And one last reminder to switch your view from gallery to speaker. The directions to do that are going to be in the chat. And with that, I will turn it right back over to Joe. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Casey. Okay, so before we get into the program, I'll just go over a few other points. The Not-for-Profit Council here is comprised of not-for-profit and business leaders of all backgrounds. We convene to engage in meaningful dialogue, share successful business practices, and develop programs that support strategic growth within New Jersey. During this session, we do invite you to please place any questions that you may have in the chat. Our speakers are here to serve you and hopefully answer any questions you may have. Also, the council will also attempt to help out with any questions you may have. We will synthesize these questions and pose them to our speaker following the presentation. Also, please feel free to add to the chat your name and contact information so that we continue the networking afterwards. And with that, it is now my great pleasure to introduce our speakers. I'm proud to introduce, always grateful when a speaker comes to provide some value to our membership base, which is all of you guys out there. I'm proud to introduce Dean Pastras, the Chief Executive Officer for Bergen's Promise, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to meeting the mental health and wellness needs of children up to the age of 21 in Bergen County, New Jersey. I'd also like to introduce Cynthia Castaneda, the Director of Care Management, who will be co-presenting along with Dean. They're going to discuss the implementation of policy and team-based approaches that can lead to success in recruitment and retention, which I know is a valuable topic for me and my business, and I'm sure it will be in yours as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dean and Cynthia.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us. I've had a good exchange over the course of, I guess, a few years with NJBAI. I get your magazine and I read it often and with interest with many things. And particularly what caught my eye some time back was the focus on diversity, intensity, and inclusion, which is a part of what we're going to be talking about today in recruitment and retention, thus the title. So I just want to go to the next slide and the learning objectives. So I think it's always important, to have objectives and goals, inclusive strategies to engage your team in recruitment efforts, simple techniques, big results to create a cohesive workplace and reinforce team camaraderie, dynamic, fun ways to simultaneously engage staff in internal information sharing, creative, teachable moments that stick, and creative advertisement of the organization's culture, employee experience through social media. So there's a lot of subtopics to that, but I want to start with a question for the group. And I do encourage, if you have questions, I'm not great at using the chat, but you're welcome to put it in there, and I'll count on Cindy to kind of flag those. We have a couple of other staff here too. They could flag them and help to answer as well. Hopefully there's going to be enough time at the end for some questions. Let me be clear about when you would like this to end. Is there a time frame? I understood around an hour. Is that right?
That's right, Dean. Thank you.
Okay. So I've got my clock is in eye view always. So I will tell them that I will move this down into we can have some time at the end. We can also stay after if people would like for some questions, and we'll also make ourselves available if someone wants to contact us at some other point. So I want to start with a question, okay? And I've asked this question of people I interview, management and all staff alike. It is a question that I'd like to take credit for it, and I probably could. I was at a conference many, many years ago, and it was on recruitment and retention. And there was like one thing that stuck out. There was a panel, it was packed, and this is years and years ago, and it was packed to the hilt. And so this is how long ago this has been an issue, way before the pandemic, way before the economic turn that happened, and the job force depletion that occurred. So the question I'm going to ask is that there's a lot of things you can do about recruitment and retention, but what do you think should be the number one priority for agencies far in a way? What is the most important priority for recruitment and retention? And I'll take some answers, and I will tell you that it's not my answer. This was given to me again elsewhere, but I believe that it's very true. And yet I must have asked this question hundreds of times and no one has answered it. And the answers are usually, I could list them. They're pretty much the same how everybody answers. I will give you a hint that the answer is kind of in the question. So any hands? I don't know if I can see hands. If somebody wants to take a shot at this.
I thought maybe employee engagement.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a star for being very close. And that's very close. You're on the right track.
I'm going to say making recruitment and retention your priority.
That's the answer. So congratulations. I don't have a prize for you. Now, reason I want to talk about that is that we have an hour to tell you how to recruit and retain better. And I can tell you right now, that's far and away not enough time, because if it's a priority generally does not last an hour. Not a priority like this. It is when you wake up in the morning. It is when you go to sleep at night. It is all the time. And that's what, to me, this priority is. If you expect to do something that no one else is doing, which is to fill your seats and recruit staff and retain them beyond what your averages are, especially in the nonprofit world, then you're going to have an energy that permeates throughout your entire agency. And that is not easy to do, I can tell you. People will tell you it's a priority, okay? But they will not act in that fashion. And that's what you have to look for. Things like, how many interviews did we do this week? How much delaying were the interviews? What are the outcomes? How are we tracking this? And I'm just giving you that as an example. But you need to, I've seen it where we had somebody being referred for an interview, and I see a delay of 2 weeks because of a vacation, or because of, they couldn't fit the person in, or their schedule didn't match, our schedule. Well, that's not a priority. And at this juncture of time right now, we as the employers are in what I call a one-down position. The employees have the upper hand that are applying for jobs because they have multiple places to go, although that is changing. Can we have the next slide? Okay, so the model that we use for children and families is not just a model for children and families work. It's called wraparound. And if you look at that little slide with the child with the cute little hat on, and you look at all the people that surround that person, that's their team, okay? And you can expand on that in terms of the informal supports, and list, who's a primary care provider, who is, it's not maybe parent or legal guardian, it may be parents or legal guardian. Who are the care providers? And in the informal supports that you also need to have in this circle, things like clergy, things like neighbors. So when you look at the wraparound model and you look at using that talks to the team approach to recruitment and retention. And that talks to making it a priority for everybody. The child, in this case, changes and becomes your agency, and all of the people around you, they're your temp services, they're your colleagues, they're your friends here at NJBAI, and telling everybody that you have openings. Have flyers and other means with you at all times, whether it's on your card, with your little URLs that we have on our card. I don't know if you can see this, probably not, but this is what I give out, and I tell people we're hiring. Take a look at the job postings. The priority idea, of course, is not just about recruitment and retention. We all have other things to do. So what we did is we decided to put up at the top what we call our pie. You see it at the left, and you see recruitment and retention is right up there at the top. And you see what it's next to is cybersecurity. Those are two critically important things. Financial accountability, wraparound diversity, equity, inclusion is there. Compliance and health and safety, those are the slices of the pie that we put. And we make sure that we're looking at that. When we have department head meetings, that is on our agenda to go through those areas and talk about them once a week in some fashion or other. The more that you talk about it, the more it reflects the priority. So you should be talking about retention and recruitment all the time at your meetings. People should be bringing ideas in. You'll see an energy at first, and then you'll see it subside. You'll see an energy when you fill positions, and you'll see it subside. And that's what ends up happening is what happens, right? You fill all your positions, you take a breath, and you use the word stop, right? You say, okay, we're going to stop hiring now because we've got all our positions filled. You don't ever stop the idea of hiring. You may not onboard somebody, but there's a term in HR called evergreen, and that means you keep that energy going, right? You don't let the grass turn brown. You know, it's not seasonal like in the winter when your grass dies, as opposed to and a nice springtime when it's nice and green. It needs to be that green all the way through. We have one of the things we use.
Oh dear. So is it just me or Dean freeze?
Dean, it looks like Dean froze. I will keep going because I don't know when he will unfreeze, but if I know, Shalisa, I saw your name pop up. If you could just reach out to Sandy maybe and see if he could pop over into Dean's office, that would be great. Okay, so we are going to keep going. As many of you are aware, we did have a nationwide challenge due to the pandemic, as well as the rise in mental health challenges, at least for our industry. And I know that on the call, there's probably different industries that are represented, but I'm just going to talk a little bit specifically about our particular industry, which is the mental health industry. And so we did find a nationwide shortage. When COVID happened in 2020, our services, which are primarily done in home, had to be done through telehealth and through telework. And while it was a great Band-Aid, it didn't really provide the appropriate wraparound that we wanted to have for the youth and the families in Bergen County. So as you can see, there was about 74% of over 1,600 nonprofits surveyed in April reported job vacancies. We were one of them, and I'm sure that many agencies represented on the call were one as well. Some of the things that really kind of affected this were, vaccine policies, childcare. I know for myself, my kids were doing school from home. There was 6 of us at one time on the internet trying to figure out everything that was going on. Burnout was a very big deal, because you were, at least for me, I was mom, I was teacher, I was employee, trying to just kind of figure everything out. And then, very affectionately, the silver tsunami. There was a lot of retirements that happened during this time as well, in which our older generation employees were leaving the workforce, making room for younger employees. But what we were missing out on was their expertise, their training, and a lot of things that really kind of just created a gap in many of our agencies. So I just want to talk a little bit specifically about Bergen's Promise. So we had to really kind of take a step back, because as you know, that when you are hiring in crisis, sometimes you hire warm bodies, and that's not really the best way to do it. So really kind of like taking a step back and identifying what we needed. Back in May of 2022, you could notice on your screen that an average was about 19 youth per 1 care manager. Now, those were for our monolingual care managers. For our bilingual care managers who had families that speak both English and Spanish, that number did bump up. And so we did have some care managers that had about 24 to 26 youth on their caseload. And just so you're aware, the state of New Jersey does have requirements for us and how many youth a care manager can have. And 25 is very high. So ideally what we wanted was to really be able to get down to a 12-to-1 ratio or a 14-to-1 ratio. So what we needed to do is we had our challenge, and our particular challenge was that we needed to hire 50 care managers as soon as possible. Now, as soon as possible can be a little bit scary, because you get into kind of like this crisis mode of hiring, and it's like, how many interviews are we going to have? How many persons can we onboard? That's great that we're having 12 people start on Monday. Who's who's going to train them when the staff that we already have are feeling a little bit overwhelmed or maybe feeling a little bit burnt out. So when we go back to kind of like that wraparound model that Dean was explaining, it was really having Bergen's Promise as that identified patient, if you will, or identified client, and seeing what was needed on our team to be able to have appropriate and effective recruitment as well as retention. I'm going to skip this. So some of the things that we did, I mean, you could see here, there's a bunch of things on the screen. I'm sure that none of you are new to anything really that I'm going to say. We just kind of want to highlight the things that we did here. I do want to spend a little bit time on organizational transformation. Okay. And this is really where we were able to have that wraparound team effect, where we were really able to identify those gaps. And one of the gaps that we noticed was our lack in DEI initiatives. If you don't know what DEI is, diversity, equity, and inclusion, diversity is a very big numbers thing. How many persons identify as Hispanic? How many persons identify as female? How many persons identify as non-binary? That is a little bit older, I guess, if you want to say in the DEI world. It went then into equity, and now we're talking about inclusion. So our organizational transformation had to be very inclusive. And one of the best things that we were able to do is really talk to our staff. Talk to the persons that were doing the job. Review your job description. Is what you're doing really reflective on this job description? Being able to work those things out and then being able to post almost the story of the job instead of I need you to do A, B, C, D and have a checklist, because that makes it very transactional. So what we wanted to do as an agency is step away from kind of like that transactional relationship with persons, with candidates, with staff, when we were talking about recruitment and retention, and go into a more transformational situation, a more transformational headspace. One of the things that the agency did during this time was hire a DEI HR consultant. So that person was really able to come in, speak to our staff on all levels, help us identify the gaps. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was having conversations with our identified leaders and our unidentified leaders. And that is where we were really able to kind of hone into this is the job and this is the need, and really able to kind of like change our policies, have some policy enhancement, really look into that creative marketing, because we were hiring, if we want to look at generations, now we were hiring a little bit more of the Gen Z who were recent graduates. So they're and I don't want to generalize, but I look at my kids who are Gen Z, they are less likely to pick up the newspaper in the morning and more likely to go on Instagram, to go on TikTok, to go on any of those other social media platforms. So we really needed to see, like, how are we going to be creative in our marketing? And how are we going to be creative in our advertising? What are some community partnerships that we could do? And later on in a later slide, I'm going to really be highlighting some of the initiatives that we made with local colleges. When we spoke about the right person in the right path, I encourage you all, do a SWOT analysis, have a strategic plan, align your recruitment and retention with that strategic plan. We have an HR department that was expanded. We have a director and manager. I call myself an HR groupie because I love that the work that they do. I had the opportunity to go to a conference recently and just really kind of see what was going on in the HR world. So I'm an HR groupie all the way, and you know that. Dean, I see that you are back on.
I'm
so
back.
I'm just going to pass it along back to you, in which we're going to be talking a little bit about one specific policy that we enhanced for our recruitment strategies.
Okay, so I just want to, my apologies, my computer just blacked out. Things happen like this. I think that there is a good little example of what just happened, though. I know how Cindy works, and we do this together. I call them partnerships, and as well is inside the team, right? So succession planning is really, really important. And what you just saw was succession planning. I don't do anything alone. And I do it in team. And I know it's very cliche. It's very cliche, but if you saw what happened, I can't imagine that we did not miss a beat with me going out. And that's a good example of what happens, right? I always joke, no more getting hit by the truck. It's win the lottery and go to Havana. I don't know why Havana, but you know, how is your succession plan? And for retention, that is really, really important, because if the person that reports to me, if they're not lined up with my succession plan for them and for myself and for the agency, you know, then if something happens to me, they're not, you know, the interim doesn't work. I have both a letter, a succession plan letter, and a policy that I share with my board. The letter is yearly. That's for here and now. If something happened, like you just saw happen, so it would kind of say something like, you know, if I go out and black out on the screen, you know, then X, Y, and Z happens, and I name people that are here right now. So the board just has to look at that and, you know, go right to it. That makes a big difference in the security that people feel of how the agency is run. And so retention, again, right there. So this is the policy that Cindy was talking about. I did not like the idea of employee referral programs. Okay. I felt like, you know, I was worried about competition. I was worried about, you know, the liability stuff. Like somebody says, oh, you hired this person because they were friends with this person. And I had to get out of my own way. And I started this program with $350 per person, referred after 3 months of successful, and I'm not going to get all the details. We stagger it. We give, I think, 150 back then for hiring, and then 150 if they stay for 3 months. Now that works for both recruitment and retention, because if you stagger that money and you hang that out carrot, the person that referred has to stay at least 3 months in order to get the money. So, you know, that's not a long time, but it counts, right? And if you're doing all of these things all around, then it makes a difference. I then moved the money up to 500 and finally up to 750. Now, I know, listen, I came from the poor nonprofits as well as the ones that were better funded. I get the fact that, you know, somebody's going to say, well, how are we going to do this? You know, we can't afford it. Well, nobody said it had to be $750. Nobody said it had to be any dollars. You can figure out some creative way. You could give person an extra day off, right? If they bring somebody on, or 2 days off. If you're recruiting staff, that means you probably have accrual dollars. So we're penny wise and pound foolish in the nonprofits. Unlike the Business and Industry Association, who has nonprofits wisely as a part of that, you've got to look at things as a business. And to succeed at business, you have to look at the dollars and cents. I'm a social worker, okay? But I also am a very good businessman. And you have to have both aspects of this. And paying these employees was worth what we paid out, because you'll see the numbers. And I may be getting ahead of myself, but in 15 months, we filled 50 positions. And it was directly related. If I could pick one thing, besides my priority thing, if I could pick one thing, this generated the most staff we hired. I believe that Indeed was next, and career fairs was right up there as well. So, you know, there, and in terms of looking at the career fairs, also looking at interns and other things like that, doing career fairs at universities. You know, they often have career fairs there, but you can also, you know, appeal to them to recruit their interns to do intern work and then ending up hiring them. And you see the employee networking. You know, I tell people that you need to be able to tell what we are and who we do, what we do, and why they want to be here in what I call an elevator speech. You need to tell them by the time and you'd be surprised. And it's not, you know, I put flyers up in a supermarket, you know, and I had somebody ask me, why would you put it in a supermarket? Well, don't people that work for nonprofits go to supermarkets? We put them up in hairdressing salons, you know, you need to expand, you know, your community base as well as your staffing base. Just think about it, though. If you look at how many staff you have, and I'm going to stick with this referral program for a minute. We have 200 staff. So when we had 150, if you know, we needed 50 staff, well, half of our staff brought one person, we would have more than filled every position. One person from each staff. Think about it that way. So, you know, it's really important, and the staff had fun with it. And then because we were able to do this, after we were doing it for a while, I threw a surprise lunch for all those who had referred, not just the ones who got hired, but all the ones that had referred. And I brought them in a room, I brought them lunch, and I stood up and I told them how grateful I was, regardless of whether the person got hired or not. And so we'll move on. We have the video next. Yes. This is also what we did. We bought a bunch of TVs, and because they're not that expensive anymore, we put them all over. We have 35,000 square feet. We put them all over the office, right? And once a month, we have a 10-minute show, which is called BPTV, Bergen's Promise TV. And we put, in a cute, funny way, you'll see it, key points of we want to extend to the staff so they see them visually. What Cindy was talking about before about no more newspapers, right? Well, email is not the way people communicate very well anymore. Texting is really not, you know, all these things have declined into social media. So how do you replicate, you know, that format or do something different? This is what we did. So here's what we posted for getting the message out about the referral.
Hi, I'm Meg. Do you like money? Of course you do. Referral bonus that puts $750 in your pocket. So how do you rake in the dough? It's actually really easy. So for me, all I did was reach out to my sorority sisters, and now Raquel, Melanie, and Aaliyah are my coworkers. So what are some of the amazing perks? Well, lowering the caseload size for you and your team. And most importantly, free money. So, according to our extensive research, everyone loves money. And the data does not lie. I referred Ija from support team by messaging my friend's group chat. Now I have $750 towards my next student loan payments. And we're not talking about bean dollars. We're talking about cold, hard cash. Just by bringing people in.
I referred Arlene when we were just talking, one of my college friends, and now I have $750 to put into my daughter's savings.
I'm still working on mine. So what are you waiting for? Refer your next coworker and get $750 in your pocket. First payment of $375 received after the successful completion of first 30 days. Final payment of $375 received after successful completion of probationary period.
So a little funny story. And actually, I believe Ryan is on. One of the observers here. We're going to get feedback from. Ryan is our person who does a lot of this work. And he came to me and he's very respectful about asking my permission for things. And he asked me, you know, can I give out, you know, these Dean dollars to everybody? And I said, no. I said, you're not putting my face on dollar on this bill and giving it out to anybody. Well, he managed to, and I'll go make a long story short, he snuck it in, and now it's like everywhere. People had me signing them. I don't take myself all that seriously, even as COO. My ego is certainly healthy, but I have my own humbleness with this. But you know, you have fun with this stuff, and that's important also. You know, we laugh and joke, but the person that did the lead in this, Meg, she was one of the lead persons in the referrals, and I had several conversations with her. She is a direct service care manager, and she's very dedicated to the agency, and she was really good at this. And so that, you know, and you think about it, if they refer, you know, and you let them know this in person, you know, you refer 2 people, that's $1,500. You know, you refer 4, that's $3,000, right? So it adds up. And the thing about it is that we had more than enough accrual dollars, you know, to make do with this. Because when you're not paying staff, right? If you have a $50,000 salary, right, and you're not paying staff, or $52,000 to make it even, it's $1,000 a week in accrual dollars. You know, what are you spending that money for? And is it the agency priority that you're spending it on? So I just want to emphasize, because I do know that not everyone is in the position to pay out, and that I'm very sympathetic to the nonprofits that struggle. So I'll turn it back over to Cindy. I think that's what I'm supposed to do, and creative
Thank you, Dean.
marketing.
No problem. So I know earlier I was talking about the unidentified leaders, and Meg was definitely an unidentified leader. We were really able to tap into her, and I know that based off of that, many of our persons who had sororities or fraternities or other groups were able to go out and really refer. I'm just going to really briefly talk about creative marketing and some of the things we did. I know that earlier I was talking about newspapers. I know Dean had come to me specifically about newspapers, and I said, no, I mean, I read them online, but I don't go out and buy a newspaper. So, you know, we have an Instagram page. We do have a LinkedIn page. The cool thing about LinkedIn is most of us are on it. And so you could just tag a person, put it in there, and, you know, we have, you know, several followers. We did get some hits off of LinkedIn. And you might say, okay, I put it on LinkedIn, I got one hit, but it was one hit more than you may have that you got if you didn't put it on there. So it's just a great way to advertise, being very strategic geographically if you're using something like Facebook or other avenues to really be able to put it strategically. Like I know with Spotify, it can be geographic so that only in certain areas will that ad play. We have other opportunities, like if you go to our website, bergenspromise.org, for you to be able to see many of our promotion videos. We do have some walkthrough videos. The walkthrough videos are great for our new hires, even during the interview process, because it gives them just a quick peek to be able to come into the office and see what is going on there on any given day. The testimonial videos are really great. I personally love the agency value videos. Values are a wonderful thing. And if you promote that you are a values-based agency, know what those values are if someone asks you what they are, and make sure that what you are advertising, is true and real for what your agency is doing. There's our QR code that Dean was mentioning earlier. We do have our email marketing, so we make sure as part of our signature, we let persons know that we are hiring. QR code is part of all of our business cards. We do have quarterly provider collaboration meetings with different agencies, and actually next week we do have a provider fair of persons coming in, and just making sure that recruitment is always part of the conversation. I know I'm going a little bit fast. I just kind of wanted to get through these. I did want to spend a little bit time now on the community outreach and partnerships, most specifically on the interns. You'll see here that there's a whole host of different ways that we have outreach. We have community-based events, there's committee meetings, we have our career fairs, both virtually. We have career fairs with local universities. We have conference sponsorships, in which in all of these areas, we're really kind of developing those relationships with persons. I probably have more of an affinity for internships because I was an intern, not here, but elsewhere. And when you're looking for an internship anywhere, sometimes it's so hard as the student to just cold call somewhere and say, hey, are you looking for interns, and not really know what's going on. So one of the ways that we've been able to do it is we're using our staff. Where are they alumni from? Rutgers, Ramapo, Montclair, Kane, all of the local universities, NYU, Fordham. I'm just thinking of the interns that we have right now, going into classrooms, into senior, oh gosh, there's a word for it. It's not senior workshop. All my kids had to do it. I forgot what the name of it was.
Senior seminar.
Thank you. I don't know who said, thank you, Shalisa. The senior seminars where they go in, like they're ready to graduate. They may have been like a psychology major or a child advocacy major, and saying, hey, look, you know what, we do take interns. And that is a pipeline for recruitment. I know specifically offhand, I could name 3 that are coming to my mind right now that were interns that were able to interview during their intern experience and really be able to kind of embrace the values that we have here and be hired. And it's not just for care management. We do have interns in other departments. We have an intern for our education manager. We have an intern in community resources, in finance, technology, and in data management, if I'm not mistaken. So interns are great. We love them. We really want to see them succeed here. Before we go into retention, I just want to focus a little bit on the results. At the beginning of our presentation, we were talking about having to fill those 50 spots. And some of the things that we did was really that targeted hiring, really taking a step back, who was on our team. I said that earlier, really being inclusive in our hiring practices so that we're not so much looking for a fit. Who is going to fit the agency? Because if you fit the agency, you're just hiring someone like yourself. But what can a person add to the agency? And there, you might have 40 steps. You might say, okay, I know what my last step is going to be, but always start with step 1. So I'm just going to focus very briefly on one particular demographic, on one particular diversity data point that was very important to the agency. When we did a survey of the youth and families that were being served, we noticed that our staff was not representative of the youth and families being served, most specifically with language proficiency. So we had to take a step back, really analyze what was happening. And, you know, currently we have, that didn't pop up. Currently, we have close to 100 employees that are fluent in a language other than English, which represents 10 foreign languages, which is a 209% increase of bilingual employees from last year, 2022, to the present year. And it also represents 93% of our youth. I'm sorry, we have 309 of our active youth whose first language is not English. They speak a total of 19 languages, and we are able to service 93% of them, which is really, really great. So of the, you know, we have, just to name a few, there's English, which is language, English, Spanish, Hindi, Korean, French Creole, Arabic, Portuguese, and a couple more that I just can't remember. But it's really great when we are able to go into a youth's home and speak the language of the family, because it just allows for more of that cultural connection, that language connection, and really be able to strategize the needs of those youth and families. So I am going to pose a question. And we had our 50 spots filled, which was great. So before we, now that we are going to go into retention, I am going to pop a question up. If you want to answer in the chat, if you want to raise your hand, that's great. We're here to answer it. So what retention strategies have been successful for your particular industry or organization? And then we're going to share a little bit of what was successful for ours.
I'm just going to add, if I might, that I do very little without a strategy, and it stays concurrent. So the reason that we're asking this question is because we don't know everything. We know almost everything, but we don't know everything. You do, and others do. And if you look at the team approach, right, it gives everybody here an opportunity to say something that we might not have mentioned, and doing this in this forum, and then you see it, and it may be something we'll add, we'll gain from it, you'll gain from it, right? It's something else. This is using the team, of this. It's not us talking to you, it's us talking with you. And that's really a philosophy I have about management. I call staff that report to me sometimes partners. I don't look at that hierarchical piece. We're working together. And that's important. I mean, there's somebody in charge, yeah, but really teamwork is really, really key, and leadership. So back to the question.
We're going to move on. We're just going to share a little bit about ours. I think that someone put in the chat that a lot of time is spent on employee engagement. Yes, that's very, very important. That relationship building with the team, regardless of what level you're on, having that emotional intelligence and that relational intelligence is great for those retention strategies.
Yeah. Also, with that's a really good point about the engagement. Relationships are critical around the retention areas. I agree, and what Cindy said earlier about the aligned values, that was another demarcation and kind of thing, you do what you value, right? I mean, that's really, what it boils down to. So in interviews, you really want to hear that, and you want to hear them up front say, what brings you to the agency, and you want to hear them ahead of you saying you feel like your values are aligned, that they come in and that's clearly on your website and shown, and that the people that you're interviewing, you want them to have read that and seen that and picked out the values. And then you start to see the alignment. And as Cindy's pointed out, they don't have to think exactly like you do, or act the way that you do, or have the strengths or weaknesses that you do. But the values alignment is very important.
I'm just going to read an answer that Mary typed into the chat. I absolutely love it. She wrote, "We do our best to align with our core values of unconditional love, absolute respect, and relentless support for our youth, staff, volunteers, and supporter, which has led to some very long staff retention." I love that relational intelligence that you have in there, and really dialogue is best. Appropriate feedback, continuous feedback, having that open and honest communication with your staff just does lead to trust building, respect building, and for that engagement and retention. So I'm going to move on. You're free to use the chat if you'd like to add anything. Some of the things that we did, employee participation. I am going to show a quick, brief clip of the BPTV that Dean was talking about earlier, and some of the ways that we really strengthened our culture internally. As Dean mentioned, there's TVs located throughout the traffic areas. It's really great when we show these we show them about twice a month. Everyone stands from their cubicles, leaves their office. They're standing in front of the TV. They really want to see what's going on. But one of the best things is, like, if they see, let's say I'm promoting something on the TV. I was only on there once, and Ryan, I know you're listening. That doesn't mean you need to ask me again. So I was on there one time, and then they would ask me questions about whatever initiative was being presented. So really being able to have that cross-department communication and collaboration. So I am going to show a quick clip. Here we go.
Good evening, Bergen's Promise. My name is Ryan O'Keefe, and you're watching BPTV. Here are October's top stories. This just in. After an incredible year of recruitment and retention efforts, our BP team is nearing capacity when it comes to care managers. However, we are still seeking more care manager supervisors. That is why our referral program has now been increased to $1,000 for anyone who successfully refers. For more, we go to our special correspondent.
Thanks, Ryan. Preparation for our annual holiday toy drive are kicking off. Care managers will have until Friday, November 10th to submit toy requests for their youth that might struggle to afford gifts this holiday season. Remember, this is a popular event, so first come, first serve. Please make sure to follow the directions in the form by providing the name, cyber ID, age, gender.
We want to take this time to welcome all of our new staff that started with us in September. We hope you feel comfortable and right at home. Now, in addition, congratulations go out to Shelda, who was recently promoted to care manager supervisor. Way to go. Finally, we have some spooktacular work anniversaries to celebrate in October. Gianna, Destiny, and Sandy knocked out their first year. Chelsea and Carolina have had a thriller 2 years. Lori and Marika have made it a successfully sweet 6 years. And finally, Shalisa has treated us to 18 years at Bergen's Promise. That'll do it for me. Thank you for tuning in. Be great, Bergen's Promise. Good night.
Great. I hope you enjoyed that. We enjoy it every month when Ryan puts it on. I will say that of the 200 staff, I don't know an exact number, but I think a little bit more than half have been actors. So it really just allows for you to meet who is on your team, who is part of the staff, if it's not someone that you see, if it's not someone that you see every day. So this is, again, very specific to Bergen's Promise, some of the retention strategies that we have employed and continue to do. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. I want to highlight health and wellness specifically for our staff, ensuring that our benefits package is attractive to the persons that we are hiring, making sure that, we have things like gym membership reimbursement, EAP, some of the other things that are internal initiatives. We do have a Wednesday walk in which there is a particular topic of the week. It could be men's health, women's health, mental health, suicide, all different things that we do during our walk. We have financial wellness, in which we have sometimes external presenters or our finance department coming in and really talking about that aspect of health and wellness. We've had smoothie day, mental health day, we had suicide prevention month, and there is daily meditation for those who want to meditate. Most of the times it is in a conference room, but there have been times that our meditation is virtual. As far as the team building activities, some of us got together and developed a work group, and we were really noticing that the teams were cohesive. We wanted a little bit more cohesion, so we were able to kind of develop a policy associated with a stipend, in which the teams were able to use on a quarterly basis to go out and do things as a team that they may not have normally done. Some of the things that I've seen are candle making, axe throwing, karaoke. One team went to see Barbie and had dinner. So a whole bunch of different things that they do for those team building activities. On top of those, we do have agency specific gatherings in which there's a lot of employee appreciation on a quarterly basis, food trucks. Now for the holidays, there will be a holiday spirit week. As part of our DEI trainings and initiatives, we make sure that we have drop-in events, whether it be for any specific demographic that we want to be able to highlight. And then every year in June, we do have a Feed Your Soul event, which aligns with the Juneteenth holiday, in which we are able to really highlight Juneteenth, but also we have persons bringing food from their culture and really be able to share as an agency things like that. Professional development, we currently have many staff who are on professional development, and out of our 18 supervisors, 11 of them were internal promotions. We had several supervisors that care managers that have been promoted to different positions. And one of our favorite is when care managers return and either reapply as a care manager or reapply as a supervisor. So we had to really look at what our onboarding strategy was, have stay and exit interviews, we also identified staff that were at risk to be able to go in and have different types of conversations with them to see, what we could do and how we could join them and partner with them to be able to kind of have those retention numbers stay where they wanted to go. Dean, I'm not sure if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Just a couple of things that came, two things really quickly. The diversity, equity, and inclusion piece has been a heavy focus, as we've mentioned throughout. And I'm very proud to say that what you saw reflected in the languages, it also, we have a diverse staff in every level throughout the agency. And I would say we're probably way above the norm for Bergen County, being, the population that lives here, and matching that up. That's one thing. The other thing, I just wanted this is kind of an outside thing about being creative and thinking about things from a very positive level. And here's the example. So I don't want to get into whole details of it, but they were talking about an ad that somebody ran. It wasn't us. It was for a veterans hospital. And it was a gentleman who was pronouncing that he sold ads for radio. And he did it for free, but then you pay for the radio time. So we didn't want to use the radio time, but I listened to what he said. And this is what he said about an ad. He was engaged by a veterans hospital that said that they were just bleeding, no pun intended. They had nursing staff, which is a very hard thing to fill these days. And they said, the CEO said, okay, tell me the ad you would write. I take the ad, we write an ad for us and we'll look at it. We'll see. So he asked them, what are the three things that make you different than any other veterans hospital, right? So that's a great recruitment question. And the guy said, sure, I can tell you that. We have the worst equipment. that anybody has. That's different. We have, the most, shortages in staff, which is different. And our environment, our environment's not great, in terms of the work environment. And we don't have very good pay or benefits. That's what makes us different. And so the ad that the guy wrote was this. He wrote, if you want really good pay and you want a great environment to work in, and and you're looking, for great benefits, then you don't want to listen to this ad and you don't want to work here. But if you want to help those who serve their country and give back to them, then we need you here. Something to that effect. So appealing to the altruism, not what he could pay. Because what do we say, right? When we don't have enough money to fund, we always say, well, if I could raise the salary, and compete better, that's not always true. One of the programs that I supervised it was one of the most poorly funded programs. This is years back. And that program had the best retention of any program I ran. And it was for a lot of these reasons that we're talking about, but it was really because it was a great program that was a prevent child abuse program. And the staff loved working with these children that were seen at birth, and then for 3 years afterwards in the home. So that's what kept them there. So we can move forward. So we are done. We are done on time. We even have a few minutes for questions. And again, we're willing to stay for the rest of the meeting, whatever that might be, and also to stay after if you want to arrange that or do that. But so questions. Okay, something from Betty, which I'm trying to navigate them.
Sorry, Dean, I can just ask you. So this is really incredible work. I'm curious to see if you added something to your retention toolbox that you felt didn't work and then you abandoned it.
It's a great question. I have
So
trouble.
I'll answer if it's okay, Dean. Can I just
go ahead?
I'll answer it. So I just do want to talk about maybe the team building activities that had to go through a lot of different revisions before we made it into what it was. So there have been things, something like that was trial and error. The meditation didn't fail. I think that there may have been low numbers at the beginning, but finding the right people to be able to do it was very, very important. So kind of like noticing what the gaps are and making sure that the right staff was in the right position.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll think of something after, and I'll be honest, not to sound flowery, but I have a lot of work in my head to remain in positive thinking and to reduce. And so because we succeeded at this, but I will say that the journey along the way, a year and a half ago, that 15-month mark, I went in my office and I was whining about the numbers. And earlier, Cindy probably showed you when I was off, they showed you that slide on the state of the world, the state of the economy, with and there is a thing called the participation index. I don't know if you know what that is. That's essentially in the labor world, and it really measures the number of people that are able to work but not working. The phenomenon that happened during the pandemic is people decided they didn't want to work, and and they just stopped, and they found some way to make do. And so in order to get them re-energized, that was really difficult. And so in that beginning spot, nothing was working. I mean, I don't remember some of the things specifically 2 years ago. And I remember going in my office and closing the door and having this conversation with myself. It sounded like I'm never going to be able to do this. People told me in forgiving ways, you may never see every position filled, and that just didn't sit well with me at all, because everybody else is just like you. Why would you think, and I realized we had to be completely different. And that was really a struggle because we were doing a lot of the same things that everyone was doing, the recruitment, retention. I went to tremendous conferences. I will say, now that I told you I would think of it, I went to that seminar and it was on, you trying to sell radio time. And so this guy was really good. I told you the story he told. He was really good salesperson. When I came back, I talked to the consultant that Cindy mentioned, that's very good with diversity and recruitment and retention. And I said to her, yeah, Radio Time, this is something totally different. And we didn't actually try it, but we were close. And she talked me out of it. And I realized that the ad that I heard for this gentleman's seminar on the radio station, 107.1, that I heard, in the next year after not doing it, I never heard one ad, not one single ad for employment. So I realized that it wouldn't have worked. And so there were probably things that got cut down before, we actually put them in place. But I can honestly say that part of what you're seeing and the difficulty to find that is because we really worked hard to get to the spot. And that's why we wanted to do presentations too, because we feel we have something to offer. And as a nonprofit and someone that's, within the nonprofit world. And the last thing I want to say is not quite about that, but in the DEI piece, I read an article, I think it was in your New Jersey Business Magazine, because I know I read a lot. I got here early every morning. I read about recruitment and retention. And I remember seeing something that said, if you have a diverse staff, statistics say that those companies, do much better financially. And I'm trying to figure out, I always thought about the efficacy, and I like it, and the children we serve, right? But I never thought about it from a practical business model until we started bringing staff on. And then I'm not going to go into all the details, but I saw that outcome. I saw the differences of opinions that added to the culture of the agency, pun intended. That's who we became. And we use them to talk to kids. Maybe they might even be, their qualification might be because they're of a certain ethnic background, right? And they know something about that background, and we use them for advisement. And on the teams, we've had them go out. We had our director of technology, who's Korean. He went to speak to a Korean community group in Korean and to advertise what we are and what we do. So I suddenly realized that's what that is that you have all this difference, coming in. And it's not easy to do. You can't just do one single thing and thinking about advertising. You have to do a lot in order to get a more diverse staff. And probably whatever you're doing is not enough. And I would say that for myself. I thought I tried, couldn't do it. We were not diverse enough. Not my fault. It's the zip code. It's this and that. I had to get out of that thinking, saying, okay, we need to think differently. And that's, short version of what occurred, but there's a lot more to it. Any other questions or comments or thoughts?
That's great, Dean. And you know what? I really appreciate that. I was hoping we were going to have a few more questions, but you covered a lot very concisely and very quickly. And I appreciate all the information you've provided. I threw one question in there which Cynthia answered. So we don't have to go into the details about it. Maybe I can contact you guys offline. I just wanted to say how amazing it was that you had real life employees that were able to put on that quality of production. So I was very impressed with that, which is all I really wanted to mention.
Yeah, and they're out there watching this after it's over. They all laugh and applaud. People bring popcorn out for the 10 minutes. I mean, they just love this. They absolutely, and you're giving messages. That's the important things of value, in a package. It's almost all work related, but it's adding a fun piece to it.
For sure. All right, I think we're pretty close to the end of time. So if anybody has any other questions, please post them in the chat or send them to us separately, and we'll try to get them to Dean and Cynthia to answer them to you offline since we're at the end. What I did want to say is I really liked, there were many things about the presentation I liked. I really like the social media style of the recruiting incentives for employees. I think those people did a dynamite job. So congratulations to you guys on putting that together.
Thank you.
And actually executing on it. If you think about it, what better source of referrals for employees than your own employees who already know what the culture is like. I also thought it was interesting about you saying, Dean, that you posted at the local supermarket. You're right. Everyone does go to the supermarket. You never know where your next great employee is going to come from. So I just wanted to make those final comments. I don't think we have any more time. As I mentioned, keep posting questions for those of you who are still on the call for the networking. And we'll try to get them answered to you to the best of our ability. I would like to thank all of our speakers, Dean and Cynthia. Once again, I think you guys did a dynamite job. Thank you so much for presenting to the group. I hope the group found it as valuable as I did. I know I'm going to share some of those little quick tips that you had with our HR department. So hopefully we all benefit from that. I'll give
Thank you
one
so
more
much.
quick. You're welcome. I'll give one more quick shout out to our partners, Association Member Trust. I talked to these guys I talked about them at the top of the presentation. Association Member Trust, Citizens Bank, DCM Associates, Focus New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, Nisavacia, NJBIA HR Support, and NJ Business Magazine. I think CLA was in the beginning as well. So thank you to them as well. If you think, as you're listening, if you think you'd like to be a speaker, please let us know. We are currently filling out the rest of our program. We're always filling out the rest of our program to keep topics of value to you, to disseminating it to you. So please keep your eyes peeled for some incoming emails for more information. And if you'd like to stick around, we can do a little bit more networking. Feel free to do so. But if you got to jump, we understand. And thank you for joining us today.